All right, we are back. Both players looking at their opening sevens. Remember, we are picking winners. So if you manage to type Supreme in the chat, we'll be picking the winners of them. If you do win and your name is popped up, make sure you contact Anu. He will then give you all the details of how you can claim your prizes, as well as we're doing the extra life stuff today, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, every $50 that is donated means one more prize winner that will be given at the end of today's stream. So there's a lot in there. I think Mr. Aspiring Spike still might be a top donator. Let me go have a little check of that.
Honestly, I think, obviously anybody who donates, just thank you. No donations are required. We just really appreciate them, except Aspiring Spike. I think his donations are required for putting us through these up the beanstalk mirror matches. So, thank you so much, Spike.
Well, we associate Bean a lot with Anu as well, and Anu's the second top. So, let's just blame both of them. These two definitely have to fund the the delightful game of Magic they were about to watch. As we see yet a second Bean come down here now for, our 10-time top finisher, Javier.
Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of how it looked before, Will. I mean, it was just Javier had this really aggressive bean draw, kind of the stock draw. I mean, the best possible thing you can be doing in these mirrors is just to draw one of the up the beanstalks to play on turn 2, and then to have a Cascader to go on 3. Or in this matchup, Teferi is pretty interchangeable, so since it shuts down the Cascades of Mason. But Javier just did the thing, so it's up to Mason to catch up to that. Otherwise, Javier will just kind of run away with it like he did in the first match between these two players.
At what point do we start considering decking ourselves? Because I'm already looking. I know this is like turn 4. I'm already looking at, okay, so potentially 3 beanstalks are coming down here. That's gonna be a lot of cards drawn throughout this match, and both of the player, Mason's still at 20 life.
I mean, once again here, y'all, chat, am I going crazy, or has Mason just started with 6 other cards and Jace, Wielder of Mystery every single game I have been commentating? Am I losing my mind here, or is this graphic broken? But yeah, Will, I mean, you just have the Jace for mill protection from Mason's side, and Javier has that 1 endurance for mill protection. So I just don't know if we see players get milled out these days.
Well, we're going to find out one way or another, unfortunately, or maybe good, depending on how well this turns out. But Javier missing lands. Really needs to start finding them. Going to start off with or decide against it. Might look like maybe he was going to play the third beat up the beanstalk there, and talk about an uncommon that's making a huge impact. This happens, right? Sometimes these little things get printed in formats, and you're like, and it might be all right. It could do some work, and then someone like Anu comes along, wins the Secret Lair showcase with the deck, and now we can't get it out of Modern, so we have to fully blame that man for getting these this out. And he's just won his own giveaway in the chat, by the way. Can I just add that? What a rig! He's just won this giveaway in the chat.
You know what that reminds me of? Those like classic memes where it's just LSV putting a medal on LSV, where he just has that grin. Like, that's just Anu winning his own giveaway right there. Impressive stuff, Anurag. Impressive.
Just cannot compete. Just cannot compete.
All right,
we found the land drops.
Yeah, we see the up the beanstalk cast into Leyline Binding. I love that. It's just Javier is just making sure to maximize his mana while still adding a beanstalk every single turn to just bury Mason and card advantage. And that's exactly what's happening.
We've got like both hands look relatively got all the right tools, but I guess advantage having more beanstalks on the battlefield. Every 1 card I cast, I'm drawing another 3. I can evoke, and I'm still actually plus cards. I'm not going to be going down negative at all. As we see a Leyline Binding coming down here, beanstalk on the battlefield. That's going to draw us a Fire and Ice, and we're going to hit the binding to get another beanstalk. Here we go. There's going to be a lot of back and forth in this match already. I can see.
Aren't you just hyped that this is your one match we get to commentate together, Will? It's just complete and utter nonsense at every turn. And yeah, I mean, it is kind of fun to watch. I'm not going to lie.
It's just like, right, go. Just tell me, show me how powerful this deck could be. Tell me how good this 2 mana uncommon is from the new set. Is there any sort of dud cards you'd say like game 1? Like, I'm looking at Fire and Ice not being great in this matchup. And then looking at Mason's side. What's he got on his list? Let's have a little look.
Yeah, so on that point, Will, it's for Javier, it's like the Fire and Ices and the Dead Gons are not that great. he was definitely saying Dead Gone was for, well, the other deck that he was expecting. I think as far as metagaming, I think we all put Young Dingo on Scam because that is just what he's been playing, pretty much constantly. I think if people were paying attention to my results, to my streams on the week before, I think people would probably put me on it as well. So right there, if you put 2 players on that deck, playing Dead Gone over things like Time Warp is going to make sense. You're better off against, well, more players. It just so happened. And I think a lot of people would have put Mason on an Up the Beanstalk as well, Up the Beanstalk deck as well. I think Javier was the only wild card as far as what I was thinking. And, if you're going to think 2 out of the 3 players you're going to play against are going to be a matchup where your Dead Gones are better than Time Warps, I like Javier's decision. It's just not necessarily ideal in this specific match.
So, with perfect knowledge now, knowing what the other players bought, would you have changed your deck?
Not a single card, I mean, obviously with the record, but even if I went 0-2, I would have kept it. I mean, I just think this deck is so incredibly powerful after playing it all weekend. My only regret is that I didn't play this deck sooner.
Whoa. I can hear all the grinding station players just like tears rolling down their face right now. Like, no, not Corey as well. We lost a good one today.
Don't worry, they're all in my Patreon right now, and we're all crying together about how bad it is, but we're all accepting it that we got to wait for something to be dealt with from this Rakdos deck before we can come back. Fellow Breach enthusiast, Jesse in chat as well. She's feeling the pain. She adjusted and got off the deck a lot faster than I am. So once again, proving how she's way smarter than I am. But I got there eventually with some help.
I'm picturing like the Star Wars meme of Padme just being like, "You're going down a path I can't follow" type thing going on. Just your whole Patreon just like, "No, Corey.
I know.
One. You're meant to bring balance to the Force, not destroy it." Okay, Fury's coming down, cards being drawn, battlefield getting cleaned up slightly, leaving just a 2/2 on the side for Mason here. Going to discard by the looks of it. He's decided, does he want to discard this extra bean? He's floating over it.
Yeah, maybe over the beans. I mean, Ardent Plea is literally 3 mana Cascade enchantment, so I suppose you can really get rid of that as well.
That's an extra 1 point of damage a turn, my friend. You can't throw that away.
That's true.
As an Evoked Fury is coming down just to get a 2/2 off the battlefield, yet draws 4 cards.
Just classic. Excuse me, Will. Excuse me. Did you say just to get a 2/2 off the battlefield? I don't know if you're familiar with the card Tidings. Okay, back in the day, we paid 5 mana and it was a blue card to draw 4 cards, and we liked it. We walked uphill both ways to get that Tidings, and then we'd have to walk back in the snow to draw our 4 cards. Now it's attached to a free removal spell.
And just like that, I feel like I had my own time walk because you became a boomer again. Everything is getting restored.
No, I'm a zoomer now. Me and Dingo decided this. Since I'm a Rakdos Evoke gamer, I'm now officially a zoomer. So you can't take that away from me.
No takesy backsies. Got you.
Yeah. Am I right, fellow kids?
Is there any deal breakers in this match? I'm like, obviously, Jace looks like the big deal breaker to me. I can just keep going through my deck until I've got none left in it. Play Jace, I'm going to win the game. Great. No, you can't really interact with that. Is there any how impactful is Omnath in this matchup? Do you think?
I think it's one of those cards that has to be dealt with. And if you're at this situation where one player is at a bit of an awkward spot, aka they're down on Up the Beanstalks, then Omnath can be a card that really closes the door. Or in Mason's perspective, if you can go Omnath, Fetchland, Time Warp, that puts him so far ahead. So that's kind of the key thing to look out from Mason's Omnaths. I think his are just inherently better because of that line of play than Javier's.
I feel like in that sort of instance, then Teferi's quite good over on Mason's side because then you can't get interactive with. He can take the extra turns and try and finish the game in one fell swoop. Just seeing if he's got Teferi's, he doesn't. So that literally is why you're doing the expert role and I'm not. So,
no, I mean, hey, we already saw this match.
Right?
That's the one difference is Thalia has, or Javier Dominguez has those Teferis, and that was pretty much the only reason he took down game 1 of the last match, and even game 3 against these 2 players. Teferi was a huge player, so it's pretty much Teferi versus Time Walk Time Warp, and like that's and I think if you could ask both player which one they'd rather have Mason's tech for the mirror.
Mhm.
So yeah, Javier's in a rough spot, especially if he loses this.
Well, I now count 8 up the beanstalks on the battlefield. So that's that might be a record. That might be a record today. I like it. Take the screenshot. I know you want that as your wallpaper. It's going to make you very happy. Too many beans. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. But how do we break this stalemate? That's the key. I guess, the Solitude's going to do a little bit, but then we can get that off with our Solitude, Fire and Ice. There's another Omnath in hand. This is like, how do you determine who's ahead? It's like they've got more cards. Oh, well, they've got more cards now. It's just,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
craziness.
with us having perfect information, it's a little bit easier to tell who's ahead. But I say a little bit because we don't even know exactly what's all in Javier's hands here because his hand is scrolling. He has a
11 cards.
gentleman's 11 cards in hand right now. So this is really the turning point. Javier has to do something big. Otherwise, Mason is going to be able to really just take over the game and find one of those time warps like pretty quickly.
Well, technically, Javier can only cast 5 more 5-mana spells before he ends up decking himself.
Well,
So,
he's got the endurance, so really there's a way that he can
oh
work
yeah,
it
yeah.
out where he's just never really gonna deck. I think I can't remember who was telling me this earlier, but the cool little play, I was thinking you would just have one extra like
Oh no,
restock
yeah, stack
turn,
it, yeah.
but you can stack it right where you evoke first and then put it at the bottom and kind of prevent that line. But
We get to that point, help me. It's just
yeah,
just help me. It's gonna be it's getting late in Europe, that's what I'm saying. As a Fury comes down, draw 4 cards. Hard cast, I might add.
yeah, hard cast. Now, once you get to this state of the game where you're just like, okay, I want to get to the battlefield and deal with threats as much as I can. You just start casting your spells here. But now that we have some serious action here from Mason, action as in Omnath Time Warp. That's exactly what you're looking for. Next turn, I think from Mason, we're gonna see some fireworks. So that just means, Javier has to have one heck of a turn here. Figure something out.
Go a card deeper. Draw himself a generic 2/2. Trying to work out that there's no crazy line here. Like someone in the chat just pointed out that what if Mason plays Teferi, mills Javier, and mills the endurance?
Yeah, with that ability on the stack.
Yeah.
I mean, then Mason gets the condolence or the, secondary prize of just like consolation prize. That's what the word I was looking for. Of just drawing a card and going on to the next turn, And then if endurance is pointed at Mason, all of a sudden then Thalia has no more decking protection and will just succumb to that. Then Mason can play to that. So if that were to be the last answer to Jace, I think Javier is in a lot of spot or in a rough spot.
I think we're playing for the long game right now. I genuinely think I know that sounds stupid to say, but I genuinely think we're going towards the endurance line, as in that is where we're going to go. We'll see an endurance cast this game before it is over.
Wait a minute. You think this up the beanstalk mirror is going for the long game?
Well, the
Wow.
longer than I want it to go.
Dang. That is some expert commentary right there. I think you're right, man. We might be in for a long game here.
Right. If they paid me, that's what I would get paid the big money for.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Here comes Omnath. Draw another card. Do we even have any fetchable land left in our deck is the next question I'm trying to think. We see a bunch of land in the graveyard, bunch of land in hand. Still no endurance yet, though. We know that's in the next 18, 19 cards left in the deck.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, tough spot here. Just trying to piece together a way that Javier gets out of this with when both players have an even board and there's 4 up the beanstalks on both sides. And that might seem like a crazy, outlandish scenario. It's not. Like this is usually how it plays off when both players just have good draws because they don't interact that much game 1. Games 2 and 3, you get forces of vigor, you get those kind of things into the game, which kind of complicates things. But game 1, it can definitely look like this. And when it does get to this point, it looks almost unwinnable from Javier's side just because of the time warps alone.
Okay, blindly, how much do you think the clock is going to factor in this matchup? Bear in mind, we give the players an extra 10 minutes anyway.
Yeah.
But like, is that realistically a factor that could play out in this?
You know, it definitely could. Wow, I hope it doesn't. But
Me too. Me too.
But it definitely could. I mean, you know, when it gets to these stalemates, you know, I think especially if both players were playing Javier's version where there was no time warps, there was no Jace, I think that's a very likely ending point, you know, because there's no real over the top thing. There's no Emrakul's in the sideboard, Sundering Titans, those kind of game breaking cards. So I think it could end that way in that scenario. But like I just keep coming back to, it's just all about time warp and Jace.
I'm just looking at Jace. Does Jace have to be on the battlefield when you mill the card? Like, what if we leyline binding it in response? Is that something crazy? I'm just getting it up here so I can have a little read of it. The text.
Yeah, no, you would not win the game if you deal with it with the ability on the stack. It would end like that. I could be wrong. It's been a while. You would draw a card. Yeah, because the static ability of it, it's the same as like the static ability of Narset. If you kill it in response to your own brainstorm or something, then you would still draw the card. I'm speaking Anurag's language right there. You know, dealing with a bowmaster in response to his brainstorm, so he can play 4 more up the beanstalks. You know, that's definitely his style.
That might be my favorite card from Lord of the Rings. I love that card, especially being a Yagmoth player. I love that card so much.
Orcish Bowmeister?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need you to get me to sign him.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a huge hater of that card until I started playing with that card. Turns out that was a pretty big factor in how much I was going to like that card.
What the fact of how good it was, or the fact that it can be named after you?
No, the fact that when I started playing with it instead of losing to it, that really changed my perspective, my perspective of that card, believe it or not.
Okay, I've kind of spotted something that I could think could be a crazy line that might end up happening. So,
hit me with it.
Mason's going to get to the point where he's going to play Jace. He's going to do the Jace mill ability to win the game. There's going to be a Leyline's binding in response to get the Jace off the battlefield. He's then going to have this Beseiju to get the binding off the battlefield so the Teferi comes back for when that gets resolved.
Love it.
I think that's a line that he's got in his head, and that's why this Beseiju is not going anywhere. It's tucked in nice and neatly. He's not discarding it at all.
Yeah, next to Jace, just putting it right there. Yeah, honestly, that could happen. But then, let me riddle you this. What about after that Beseiju? There's Leyline Binding number 2.
Concede.
What now, Mr. Will Hall?
The concede button comes into play. That's what happens. It's crazy. You know, I mean, it literally, I couldn't call it right now. It is still anybody's game. It looks like whoever's turn it is just ends up having more cards, discards. Then the next person takes their turn, draws a bunch more, discards. Has Mason got anything that can stop the endurance? I suppose that's the another way of looking at it.
I don't think so. There's no way for either player to interact with anything on the stack. So abilities that come into play are going to be on the stack, you know, no matter what. Post board, there's Elish Norn to stop endurance triggers. There's Force of Vigors to fight against these up the beanstalks. There's Force of Negations to counter. So like the post board games actually end up being a lot faster. Knock on wood, you know, but but yeah, these game ones are just wild.
Yeah, I suppose like if you ever got an Elish Norn in this matchup, it's pretty much game, right? There's no Teferis to balance it, so the only thing we've got is Commandeer.
No,
steal it.
For some reason, I can't see it on my graphic right now. I could Google it. Is it Commandeer non-creature?
Oh,
I could be wrong, but
we also got Sunfall, so he's got a couple ways to be able to deal with it. There you go.
Yeah, non-creature. Well, yeah, so he did bring in Sunfall the last time, I think, to be able to deal with Elish Norn, but I thought, you know, another way of just cleanly answering Elish Norn, you know, just a nice, easy way is just have all 4 fires, you know? Pew, 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 pew. You even get to deal 1 to your opponent's face.
Value town.
When you have that in your deck, like Elish Norn isn't that scary, right? You just have the 4 fires.
So Here, I think what Mason's trying to do is he's trying to get a turn. He's going to try and string these time walks back to back now. So he
Yeah.
can Jace. He's down to 11 cards in deck. Every card he plays now is going to be another 4 cards deeper. And he potentially can get the kill off. But double Leyline's Binding on the other side is going to be rough.
Yeah, double Leyline Binding, but as we say that, Mason has 2 Leyline Bindings plus the Beseju. So Mason is ahead on this line. But at this point, you start counting what's left in deck. So we look at Thalia's graveyard, excuse me, Javier Dominguez's graveyard, and kind of count. I don't know if we can scroll, if our director can maybe scroll down on Javier's graveyard, and it will just be able to look along with you. And if there's 2 Leyline Bindings already gone, yeah, it looks like okay.
Well, there's a binding under the binding that's on the battlefield.
Okay, so that's 1. That accounts for 1. There's none in the graveyard. So Javier could have 3 bindings in hand and has 3 white sources. So Mason has to play around that. I mean, you know, the odds are you don't have all 3. You know, the odds are, I don't know, we need Frank for the numbers on this, but
now he's
you
drawn a third
probably
one.
have 2.
The question is, do we have enough mana to do all this, I guess?
Yeah.
Jace is 4, binding, timing. Yeah, I think we do.
Time Warp is drawing 4 cards here. That's putting Mason to 1 card in deck. And then Mason's going to draw a card for the turn. I don't think this is going to work out the way Mason wants it to. Oh, wait, you can keep putting things onto the bottom, I guess. But here's the thing. When you go to fight over these Leyline Bindings, what I think is going to happen is we're going to see Jace from Mason. We're going to see Leyline Binding take care of it. Then Beseju. Then Leyline Binding to take Jace again. And then when Mason goes for a Leyline Binding, he's going to deck to his own up the beanstalk. Oh, okay, of course. So when he draws those cards, he will just win the game because the other Leyline binding stacks are on the abilities are on the stack. So yeah, okay, he set this up beautifully.
Okay, so we're gonna see this little bit of back and forth, but yeah, Mason with 3 Leyline's Bindings and this Beseju.
Oh, but there's the endurance.
Sure, great.
So he can also ice. So he can ice down something to draw 1 card. So Jace will win that way. So what it looks like is Mason can go ice, baby, and a Leyline Binding. So ice and then 2 bindings is all Mason can see. So I have the ability to.
Everybody that can't see, but our cameras, me and you both just got our hands on our head, just going like, "Wait, how does this play out? What's going on here? Here comes another Leyline's Binding in response to your Leyline's Binding. Here's my Leyline Binding." Anu, I hope you're taking screenshots, my friend.
Yeah, you know what? You know when Young Dingo said he had to leave? I've actually got plans with Young Dingo. We're meeting up halfway across the country here. I gotta bounce, y'all.
This is this is something. This is something. So, hold on, are we looking at the casting endurance in response? Is there a line back? I don't think there is.
I think this is just a prime, screenshot that I think everyone in chat should send to Aspiring Spikes DMs and just be like, "You did this."
Mason Clark wins game 1, pits us all out of our misery. We get to go to game 2 though. That's good. It's good. We get to go to sideboards, so we can see how they're sideboarding, what they're bringing in.
That was one of the games of all time. That's for sure. That is for sure.
For good or bad. For good or bad.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. Wow. That was unbelievable. Okay, yeah. So for sideboarding, we're gonna see from both players, it's probably gonna look the same. Removal coming out and interaction in any way, shape, or form for these up the beanstalks coming in.
So yeah, Javier needs to cut another 4 cards and decides to go with a couple of Solitudes, use a couple of Furies. Okay.
All right.
It's I don't hate this. It all makes sense. It's mental that like Force Negation's a bit of a key card now in this matchup.
Yeah, Force of Negation's a big deal. Force of Vigor is even better. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
just being able to get rid of 2 of your cards or 2 up the beanstalks ends up translating to so many more cards than a clean 2 for 2.
Well, remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are supporting Extra Life all through this stream. So exclamation mark Extra Life in the chat. Get all the information for that. Every $50 raised is another giveaway that will be happening at the end of the stream. This game, the winner of this is going to be joining Mr. Kai Barmeister into the top 8, along with the other stacks 7. Oh, well, you're supposed you're 7. The other 6 players that will be battling out in there. Mason is 1 game away from this, but you cannot count out Javier, especially when he's got a turn 2 up the beanstalk and an
Yep.
Elish Norn in hand.
Yeah, that's the dream. You hit Elish Norn, and if Mason doesn't have access to one of these Sunfalls, it's just going to be GG. But the one thing that we did see is Javier from the game that he won against Mason had the Elish Norn and then just had Force of Negation as well to protect against the Sunfall. But here is that really nice exchange. Bye-bye beans.
Bye bean. 2 beans down. 2 beans down. Advantage. I guess you got to say towards Mason, especially as he's got 2 ways of getting beans in his hand, as well as a Omnath and a Solitude. Are we questioning, do we want a Solitude in response to draw cards? Surely not. Elish Norn's got to be too OP in this matchup.
If you had like one of those other lands was another Solitude, sure. You know, that's reasonable because the card's not that good. But yeah, at this point, I think you just gotta, you know, just be sad and go on. But I mean,
Just take your licks.
yes, exactly.
But Mason needs a 3rd land drop, or he's going to have to use a Besaju to cast one of these Shardless Agents. And obviously, Besaju can be a pretty key card in this matchup, hitting all the enchantments on the other side of the battlefield.
Yeah, but Mason's going to waste no time if he doesn't draw a land and slam that Besaju. But a land is perfectly reasonable. I think there's even some thought to holding on to the fetch there to then protect it and have it ready for Omnath. But it's close. It's definitely not correct to play the Besaju, but you want to consider that, at least in some matchups, to really have those over-the-top Omnath turns.
Now the land's coming in floods. That's exactly what he needs to continue playing his spells. Over on the other side, Teferi. Not a bad one.
That was probably the best one, to be honest. Like, I mean, if you just go Teferi, bounce Shardless Agent, I think you have to at this point. Just being down a card and then say, yeah, you know what? Thalia, or I mean, Mason, do your best here for one more turn, but then it's Elish Norn time, and all of a sudden, Mason's deck doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty hard. We've already spoke. It's basically 2 Sunfalls or bust. And yeah, it literally is 2 Sunfalls or bust. Currently doesn't have him in hand. Just play a generic 2/2. What was that one you told me about earlier on?
Which one?
You were going on about your little boomer talk about you had to pay 4 mana for a 2/2 or something.
Well, oh yeah, no, I had to pay 5 mana.
5? Oh my word! How did you
5
survive?
mana to draw 4 cards. It was a sorcery, and it was busted. Okay, look it up, kids. Tidings. Okay.
We get an exclamation mark card tidings in chat to show everybody what that is.
Yeah, exactly. That's all we needed when I was a kid. We didn't need to Cascade because Cascade wasn't invented yet. And, you know, Bloodbraid couldn't hurt me at that point. We just draw 4 cards and be on our way.
Here's Leyline Binding off the top just in time after Elish Norn hits the battlefield. There's Times on this. Look at that OP card. Even at sorcery speed. Oh, yeah. Sign me up. You tell me there's a power creep happened in Magic over the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years?
No, I'm saying cards have gotten a lot worse. Tidings was OP and has not been reprinted in so long. Cards have gotten so much worse.
you heard it here, chat. Kai's going to be top 8 in the challenge next weekend with Tidings in his main.
Yeah, you know it. You know it. Just imagine playing this in the mystical disputes and stuff. I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay, Solitude hardcast coming down. Bean does draw us a card, but the ETB doesn't work for Solitude because, of course, Mummy on the other side is pretty good. There's a Besaju off the top. That's why you're dealing with the Bean on the opposite side.
Yep. Now it's time for old Elish Norn to do some damage here. I mean, to be fair, there's only 4 total toughness around anyways, but still Fury to be able to clean up both creatures is pretty good, or you just Solitude both creatures. And then all of a sudden, Javier just starts, you know,
beating down.
Just beating down. And yeah, hey, Jesse in chat bringing up a great point. You just need those 3 more fire ices, and then that Elijah is out of here, my man. Out of here.
Here's the Hardcast Fury
Oh.
coming down. Going to do 8. Remember, we get double triggers here.
Double
On the
trouble.
battlefield. You don't need them, but you know, it's just why not? Imagine if we could go face as well. How busted that card would be even more.
Yeah, we need to
Well,
make Fury a little bit better. I think we should go and talk to design there and try to get that just boost it up just a little bit.
I think Jesse will approve of that. To be fair, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, big draw step. We need a Sunfall. We need.
It might be
Sunfall.
Yeah, it might be Sunfall or Sunset here on this game if we don't find it.
Oh, I like it. I like that. Give me that all day long.
Thank you, man. I've been really practicing.
And land's not it, but we can make a couple of blockers. But we know with double solitude going to come down next turn, it is not going to be enough. Yep. Well, I suppose we could tap. We could tap something down with ice. That is a line of magic that might give us another turn.
Yep. You can play
Omnath plus
this.
land gains 4. No, it doesn't.
Yep, you can play this vanilla 4/4. Back in my day, my 4/4s, they still gain life, but that's all the other abilities they had, okay? It was called Loxodon Hierarch, I'll say. I think that's a green-white 4/4 that just gains life when it comes into play, and we loved it, okay? We gained life, we hung out with our friends, and we walked uphill both ways.
What do you think about the new dinosaur that draws a card instead of just being a Gen X 6/6 for 6 trample? It now draws a card. Where are you on that debate?
Yeah. Okay, there's the Loxodon Hierarch. So I have a firm position of where I stand on that new Colossal Dreadmaw. Okay, you want to hear it?
Go for it.
Okay, so whenever I play that new Colossal Dreadmaw, I'm never drawing a card. Just standing with OG Colossal Dreadmaw. I just refuse. I don't care if it says draw 3. I'm gonna miss that ability. I'm gonna just have my 6 mana 6/6. That's where I make a stand. Okay.
I'd say it's worse in this format. You don't want to draw cards in this format. There's Bowmaster and Shield Jets floating around. It's terrible drawing cards.
Exactly. Yeah, that card's gotten worse.
Okay, we are going to get a game number 3. The winner of this match will be advancing to the Super League top 8. The loser of this match, unfortunately, we are going to say goodbye to them, and that is going to be them out of the Super League. Looking at these opening hands, we see some key sideboard cards. I see a Force of Vigor and I see a Sunfall, as well as a Ashnorn. So, we've got Mummy, but we've got the answer to Mummy.
Yeah, I love Javier's hand. Javier's hand is exactly what I want. Mason's hand is good too. It really is missing that turn 2 up the beanstalk. Javier has been great at drawing up at least one beanstalk to be able to play on turn 2. Well, I think, there must be a glitch or something. Mason doesn't have Jace in his opening hand like he's had every other single game. So, this game, is just way different than the rest.
So, I'm just going to point this out there, right? If Javier wins this game, in the top 8, his first match will be against fellow teammate, fellow world champion, Nathan Stoyer. I'm just throwing it out.
There's already brackets out? Who am I playing?
Well, I can actually tell you that at the end of the show, so make sure you stick around and don't run off. But yeah, but that's potential. You know what I mean? He's got to win. There's a lot on the line. Mason has got a great hand here, and so does Javier. And we've got still 20 minutes left on the clock, so it could be another hour or so. Corey, don't worry, my friend.
All right, I'll take a bathroom break in 10 minutes, okay? And then it'll be the Will Hall experience for real.
It's in your contract, you know what I mean? I love it when Diva Corey comes out. People don't get to see the behind the scenes of you too much, but I get to witness it quite a lot. So I've got a photo to prove. Don't make me tweet that photo.
I am not a diva at all.
Whoa, strong words. Okay, we're going to see beans coming down. Bean number 2 here for Javier. No. Cavern drawn off the top. Not exactly where we want it right now.
Yeah, and we'll see. Here is the Force of Vigors here. Not another green card, but exactly what Mason did to Javier last game, where that second up the beanstalk hits the battlefield, and then these Force of Vigors get the max value on them. We're probably going to see that again.
I'm thinking like this force. It's going to be interesting to me when we fire off this force. Like, are we holding this, knowing that Sunfall is the only out that Mason will have to the Elesh Norn on the other side of the battlefield? Like that in my head, that's what I'm thinking. But then if you hard cast something like a Leyline's Binding, it's going to be really hard to not try and snap that off and get the value where you can.
Yeah, I think you still just have to do it here, though. We'll see. Because
Well,
I mean, it's pretty unlikely that that second Force of Vigor is going to get 2 more juicy targets right now. As I say that, here comes another enchantment on the stack immediately. But yeah, what a strange mirror match here.
I'm gonna draw a few more cards. What do you name with Amordingo? Ego.
Probably Time Warp right now or the Jace. I think those are the only 2 options.
Oh, the Jace is nice actually. I
Oh,
like
I'm
that.
just getting word, Will, from our producers that Anurag has agreed to drink a cup of coffee for every up the beanstalk trigger on the stack.
Oh,
Today.
okay. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Whoa.
On camera as well. I heard.
That's what I heard. It was on camera as well. So, man, Anurag is going to be caffeinated, y'all.
I love that he just bought a $200 prop just for one night only. You know what I mean? It's a hats off to the commitment of that man.
Yeah,
Very
that's fair.
into the magic.
All right, inevitable betrayal off the top is exactly what you don't want to draw. But to be fair, I would say there's not many great creatures to go search up, but searching up Elesh Norn is quite unbelievable, or Omnath.
Okay, Cascade, no bean. So we are firing off this force. Okay, might come back to haunt us doing that, unless we're I suppose the ego will get to see our opponent's hands, but then now I'm trying to think of where we getting the black mana from that from. We must have a Triumph in the deck that produces.
Yeah,
it.
there's Zagoth, and there's usually one other one. Zagoth is the main one that I know is for sure there, but I mean, here it is. Here is Elesh Norn. If you want to play it, I can't imagine you don't go for it. But the answer is there with Sunfall for next turn. So,
Yeah.
The biggest problem here in the deck is going to be dealt with the Sunfall. And I can imagine we're just going to snap this off, right? Like, just want to cast this right away. And then, still a close game, but definitely advantage to Mason.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, looking at it there, why did we not attack, get 2 points of damage in a sense? It's because then we now get a 3/3 instead of a 2/2. Is it incubate token? It is incubate, isn't it?
Incubate token. Yep,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, Omnath off the top. This cavern's looking not so great right now, being a colorless land.
No, yeah, it always looks absolutely insane, or it's just so terrible. Usually no middle ground, but this is interesting. Mason allowed this Omnath to come into play. Usually you want to like leyline binding it with the draw trigger on the stack, so then you can avoid the gaining of life, but the gaining of life doesn't really matter here. So Mason just saying, you know what, I'll just let you play a fetch line, and then if you want to fetch, then we can deal with it. And there's Zagoth to deal with, or to be able to cast on Mordigo.
Just on the other side, you know what I mean? 3 ley lines bind already cast, 1 Sunfall already cast. This is an endurance away. We can shuffle that back in. Potentially, we've got the option to ego. We can go find another bean. We can draw more cards if we want to go that route. Still a lot more options. As let's all go and beatdowns.
Yeah,
I'm all here. Let's go.
I mean, this is one thing we haven't really seen in this match at all. Combat. Haven't really seen any combat between these two players over the course of their 187 turns they've played on the Super League.
Okay, so imagine if we go like ego name solitude, how sick that would be. I don't think that's the line we're going to go, but that's how we could double spell this time, right? We can get a bean, we can ego, or do you like just having a hard cast solitude here to potentially have a block and maybe get rid of another creature if needs be?
Step one, I'm thinking about them beans. So I want those into play first before I start doing my other things. That's usually how I want to go with it. And then, if I have enough mana, I want to go with the Unmoored Ego plan, but it's tough. I don't know exactly what you want to name here. There's no, up the beanstalks in play. So you could name up the beanstalk and try to play that kind of game because, well, if none of those are in the deck, even if you're able to find Jace and Time Warp and stuff like that, you're not milling yourself with the velocity that you need to make those cards good. So we honestly might see up the beanstalk here.
In response, we're going to cast Solitude. That's all right.
Just
That's
in
fine.
case you name Solitude, but
I'm really interested to see what he names.
I bet it's up the beanstalk since there's none in play.
Well, there's 2 in the graveyard, right?
This time warp. Yeah, there's
Time
2 in the
warp.
graveyard, but you do get to take those, right?
Yeah, you get to take him.
Yeah.
But in the graveyard, they're not doing anything, right? We can't get him back. There's no endurances,
I
right?
guess, yeah, there's no endurance. So yeah, I suppose. Okay, if that's the case, no real point in getting rid of up the beanstalk. I say that with a question mark because those other 2 ones you can still find pretty easily, and that could break open the game. So I'll leave it and defer to Javier Dominguez, one of the best players on the planet.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. He's pretty good with this game. I've heard anyway.
One of the best. One of the best. One of the people I absolutely love the cover matches. You know, like number one, he's going to give you great play. He's going to give you a great interview, but he's also going to like wear his emotion on his sleeves, which I think, you know, that and, you know, just being happy about your wins and stuff like that is something we don't see enough at like professional level Magic. It's the shake your hand, go celebrate with your friends, but like it's okay to be happy at the table. It's okay to be stressed out during the match. And Javier does that while still being a world-class player, and just another one of many reasons why I respect him, you know, so highly at professional Magic.
Yeah, like people always say like how they're going about when they speak about Mason, about how tall he is. Javier is a giant. You know, I'm 6'2", and I think I'm looking up to him when I stand next to him. I'm like, oh, geez,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, he's a giant man.
Well, right now we're the same height in the booth, so I'll say I'm 6'2" as well. Why not?
Why not? Maybe you know, it's all a lie. Let's be honest.
Go with it.
Do whatever you want in your rider. Leyline binding off the top. This might be able to give us some beans back, but potentially I suppose we could also use Teferi to do that. But we do have Lethal on the battlefield. We've got ways to deal with it, but how are we going to get there? Let's find out.
Yeah, there's pressure at this point. You kind of need to interact with threats, even though oh wait, that's an Omnath under one of those leyline bindings. So I guess we're snapping that off because that completely neutralizes the threats. So I would think that's the case. Yeah, you get Omnath. Now you have the fetch land to turn that on. So now you get to go Solitude, exile another thing, plus Teferi, right? This is 5, 6, 7, 8. You can go Solitude plus Lorien's revealed, and all of a sudden, Javier Dominguez looks like he's putting a exclamation point on this match and trying to close this out.
Remember, the winner of this will be in our top 8, battling out for the next 2 weeks. We're going to be having the players go back and forth until we do crown a champion. Season 1 winner of the Super League. Here comes Teferi to start off. Make sure there's no shenanigans happening on the other side of the battlefield, or in the future, should I say, because obviously Mason has got 0 cards in hand. Are we bouncing the token here? Are we bouncing the bean? What are we thinking? Maybe
that is interesting. You get that card, which is totally fine. You get that up the beanstalk trigger here, which is great. Then you can Lorien reveal, draw some cards. I think at anything at this point, bouncing anything is going to be quite strong.
Still got green floating. 4 life was gained, but obviously we used 3 of it to fetch and shock. Dropping our life total to 9. So still lethal on the battlefield. You have Solitude plus white card. And yeah, we're just going to hard cast this, draw 2 more cards. Why not? One of them being Leyline's Binding, but we didn't leave any white mana up, so we can't cast that just yet.
Yep. Yeah, everything just looking in Javier's favor here. Now with the time warps out, I believe that inevitable betrayal is just going down to 2 here. So that's not really anything special. I think what, you know, Mason really needed here was one of these outrageous turns of having Shardless Agent into up the beanstalk and then doing other things, you know. But as it stands, with just 1-for-1ing these decks, you know, it's just not what you're trying to do. You know, I mean, it's similar to what you saw with me and Javier when I'm like griefing him late game when he's got 3 cards in hand. The
Yeah.
game's already over at that point, you know, like taking one of the cards when the other 2 cards draw him 2 cards when he plays it. It just doesn't matter.
Okay, so by the time all that finishes, the fairy goes to the graveyard. Both solitudes go into the graveyard. Leyline Binding left in hand for Mason. But fuck, you know, Javier's going to be able to start a turn with 7 cards in his hand and double Beanstalk on the battlefield. You imagine, you know, and one of them being Omnath as well. So you can imagine it being a pretty explosive turn.
Yeah. I mean, this game is just basically over. You know, I mean, we can be like, okay, if he does this in this extreme scenario, sure, but you know, it is a player
Okay.
of Javier's caliber is not gonna punt this game away.
Okay, he's got 17 minutes left on the clock. At what minute is he going to win this game?
Okay, there we go. That's some high level commentary. That's reaching a new.
I want to see what chat says. Get it in chat. How many minutes are going to be left on the clock for Javier once the game?
I think he's going to win at 14:47. Okay.
Oh, I'm going lower. I'm going to go like 11.
Ooh, okay.
Chat's going to start spamming them in now. I'd love to see it. I'm writing them down, chat. I'm writing them down. I'm at 11. Corey's at 14.
Oh, yes, of course.
Let's go. Let's have a little look. See, we got Jarvis Hughes on 10 minutes. The news at 12:30. Okay, let's go, chat. Let's see where we're going to get here. But we got Leyline's Binding. Looks like it's about to be cast.
Yep, Mason did say no matter what, he was trying to get some camera time in. So, you know, you gotta soak it in while you can, especially if you're on your way into a situation where we just, you know, gotta hope there's more of these. You know, I think I can speak for all the fans and all the players that, you know, send out some retweets of this awesome Super League. You know, go tell your friends, tell your grandmother, let everyone know about these Super Leagues so we can all be blessed with more of this content in the future, because I, for one, just absolutely love playing these. The few that I haven't played in that I've just been, you know, a fan and watched have been great as well. You know, I mean, the series is just really, really awesome.
Well, we appreciate it, man. The amount of work that goes into this it's quite a lot, and you know, there's a lot happens behind the scenes. We do put a lot of work into us, and hopefully we can please you all in the future. Let's say I'm not saying anything. I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but maybe, you know, I think maybe this isn't going to be the last time we see one of these 2 players.
And honestly, I mean, that's a very good point. All the work that goes on behind the scenes, like, you know, there has to be people that are babysitting Will Hall, taking care of Will Hall, making sure Will Hall doesn't screw up. Like, these are like a lot of different people's full-time job, you know, to make sure you're on top of things.
This is all Jordan does. That's all on top of what Jordan already does.
I'm kidding, of course. I'm kidding.
That's the joke. You're not. It's fine. I understand. It's fine. It's all good. It's all good. You know what I mean? I'm just a kid playing a game. It's all it is. I'm having fun.
We did see Anurag raise his hand there, so he might be helping out as well.
He does some job. He does a job once in a while.
All right, here we see the nice little play here from Javier, and that is to Leyline Binding in combat. So you can Leyline Binding the Omnath, get the trigger to draw a card, block Solitude, and oh yeah, you can deal with these first. So it just looks like Javier is going to leave Mason with absolutely nothing on the battlefield. The turn is going to end with Javier having access to 9 cards in hand, Omnath in play, 3 up the Beanstalks, all 4 Leyline Bindings, and then it'll just be his turn.
Okay. Well, while this kind of plays out and we go do the little back and forth until we finally work out at what point Javier is going to win, I'm going to update everybody on the extra life that we are doing. So
okay, perfect. While you do that, I'm running to the bathroom, Will.
All right. It's been that long a game that Corey needs to go to the bathroom halfway through the game. So as I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, exclamation mark extra life in the chat. That's in both chats. All the information will come up. Every $50 raised means that there'll be 1 MTGO prize pack put into the giveaway that we'll be doing at the end of today's stream. You've got to be in it to win it. Remember, this is to support children's hospitals, you know, in Seattle. So amazing, great cause. Shout out to Daybreak for supporting yet another amazing attribute going forward. We see Mason just drawing a land there. That is probably the nail in the coffin, especially with all these cards. We're going to add another 3 points of damage to the battlefield. Potentially, have we got double green here? We might have it. Welcome back, Corey. I can see it. I've never
All right,
seen you moves.
how was
I've
your
never,
plug, Will? Was it good? Did you
oh
nail it?
mate, we're up to $255 now. We're killing
Ooh.
it. We're killing it. That means, quick math, there'll be 5 winners, I believe, at the end of the stream so far. But today is not over yet. We've still got potentially a couple of seconds left, and I really hope Javier doesn't win because we're at 14 minutes, and that means Corey would be right, and I wouldn't hear the end of it.
I
So
said
please.
1447 though, so I already missed if we're going by Price is Right rules, which is the only way to do it.
Okay, cool. I believe
Yeah,
that's
so
in the
I've now lost. Yeah,
Oh, I mean you can't rub it in my face. That's fine. I'm
I
happy with
still
that.
will.
I still will. I'll still be sending you DMs throughout the night, just reminding you when
There
you
we
wake up in the
go.
morning. Okay. Is there any? I suppose can Mason do any? Sunfall not an out because force waiting. This would normally be a great draw, drawing 3 cards, but not when there's a force negation on the other side of the battlefield.
Yeah, Force and Negation plus Endurance. Number 2 here is just lethal. So here we go. We're going to see Force. We're going to see Endurance number 2 played. And that's going to be lethal here for Javier Dominguez joining me in the top 8. And yeah, this completes the top 8, right?
That is going to complete the top 8. We will now know in moments few the all 8 players that will be battling it out in the last 2 weeks of the Super League before we crown ourselves a champion.